I'm trying to understand who King Herod was, and did he know about the prophecies of a Messiah, a king coming, before he actually went out to nix everybody?
Well, I mean, okay, so...
Was he a Jew?
Was he what?
Was he a Jew?
Yes.
Or an Israelite?
Well, yes, okay? But here, the thing is, it wasn't until the wise men, so to speak, came, okay, and they shared with him the prophecy, okay? Mm-hmm. So that's where that was, coming from. And that's when he decided to chase everybody out, trying to, make sure that nobody was around. So these are things that came out of Babylon. Okay, these are, when I say out of Babylon, meaning when Israel or the Judah had been taken into captivity.
I've been told that baptism is a requirement for participation in the Passover meal, but I find nothing in Scripture that justifies that requirement. Am I missing the instruction for baptism as a requirement?
No, you're correct. Okay, there's no baptism requirement anywhere in Scripture to do the Passover. The reason some may say that is because that's what they've heard other people say. But I guess the connection might be the idea that it's for, Exodus 12, it's for covenanted people only, right? So one of the ways that you, at least if you're an m.t.o.i, with the declarations we make before we go in the water, we're making covenantal commitments. Anytime you are struggling with stuff you read in the Scriptures, you got to remember that you have a hard time relating to it, partially because the world you live in is not the same as the world they lived in, okay? I mean, it's the same planet, but culturally, all the norms were not the same as they are today, okay? So it's hard to understand how, well, this woman would take her, servant and give her as a wife. I mean, these are not things we do today. So especially as a woman, you're thinking, really? And then she's going to bear him babies and do this. I mean, that's going to all be put, but we're in a different world. So you just have to first look at it from like, okay, I don't understand that because I would never do that or whatever, but you're not in that world, right?
I hear this prayer warrior, like, we're just going to go pray, and I don't understand that.
All right, it's a Christian thing, okay? Probably comes out of paganism, the idea that my prayer can manipulate and force situations. So it's probably coming out of a pagan place where we're doing basically magical incantations and calling on powers to do things, okay? Whereas, because I know there are places, even Messianic places, where they'll say, oh, every seat in this room was prayed over this morning before you all showed up. I'm so glad that my rear end is sitting on an anointed chair. I mean, I don't understand all that. What I can tell you is that, and please, all of you out there, I want you to calm down right now what I'm about to say. You prayer warriors are causing more harm than good. You guys, because you're sticking your noses where you don't belong, you think you're doing all kinds of things, and you try to force and push people to be like you. And for those of you who think that I don't have a gentle side, I think I was about as gentle as I could have been. Because some of you are probably surprised, going, wow, Rabbi was so gentle. And most of you that know me were not surprised that I walked out of my office and came in here to do that. Some of you were actually looking at the door like, here he comes, Because I can't let these things not be addressed. That's proper leadership. You can go to a lot of places, yeah. You can go to a lot of places where, lots of stuff will end up being said, and that leader will just stand there and say nothing. And I'm like, especially if it's a leader that I kind of know, who I know the person a little bit, I'm like, say something. You can't just let what just happened pass without a comment. You can't just, otherwise, you know what that means? That we're approving of it. That whatever just happened is perfectly okay and acceptable and should be the way people should do things. Mikvah is with the 8 declarations, is really, you're saying, I know who you are, I know who I am and what I'm not, and I realize I need to make certain commitments, we call that a covenant, to change my outlook on that I'm not a part of the world, I'm a part of the kingdom, which means that as a member of the kingdom, I have certain responsibilities and obligations that are expected of me, which would be Torah observance and belief in Messiah, okay? Submission to that structure. So we make these 8 declarations declaring those things. But then when you come out of the water also, there's this idea of burying the old man, which is the idea of you were dead in your trespasses, you're leaving that in the water and coming out to be alive, okay? So again, it's symbolic. It's not, you actually started to go from death to life when he poked your bubble and started making you aware of him in the right way. Just try to think of these things in advance. Now, that's half the answer. The other half is, as a child, if you have the means to help them, that is purely on your hands, okay? However, if they're 70 and they're quite capable of working, then they're existing more than they're actually functioning. It's helpful to make them have something to do. They will live longer, okay, if you give them something. So now for those of you who have parents that are not the healthiest, they really can't do anything part-time, whatever, that's fine. Help them if you can, all right? But also let it be a lesson that you at 40 or 50 or whatever you are, I'm not saying you, but anybody who's, because if you're looking at 70-year-old parents, that means you're probably somewhere in between 40 and 50. Well, you got 20 or 30 years to make sure you don't end up in that same problem.
I was wanting to have more clarity on why the people waited to sell grain until after the new moon, and if we are also to hold it as the Sabbath or to refrain from labor / buying / selling, etc. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, in Scripture, it doesn't tell us. Yes, people will point to this verse, but there's no specific, this is how you celebrate the new moon. Do we have specific verses on what to do for the Sabbath? Yep. It tells you what to do, what not to do. You shall not do work. You shall rest, right? Nowhere does it say on the new moon. It says, well, when will the new moon pass so that we can do these things? So since there's not a single verse telling you to treat a new moon as a Sabbath, by the way, you know where all the Sabbaths are listed? In Leviticus 23. Every single one of them is listed there. The number one thing that everybody struggles with that calls us is finances and marriage, okay? And usually they're linked together. Why would the thing that most people struggle with the most, should anybody tell you you should force you into that if you're not interested in that, okay? If the right person comes around, maybe you'll decide you want to get married, maybe you won't, okay? But the thing is, nobody should be saying, well, you should be married. And I would say, well, you should shut up. Okay, you mind your own business. I just don't understand. And why would you entertain that, okay? What authority do they have to tell you, well, you should be married? We got a lot of people like to stick their nose where it doesn't belong. So no, you are welcome to stay single. Paul says that. Look, it's great to be single, and if you got a problem with your passions, and then maybe it's better for you to get married, but either choice is fine, okay? But nobody should be pushing you in either direction. This is the other thing I love. Well, I wear my seat inside because I don't need, I'm too embarrassed for people to see it, or I really am not wearing them, and I'm just going to lie to you and say I'm wearing them inside. The value of them, community-wise, is for them to be where everybody could see them. Because if they're a reminder of your covenant and keeping commandments, you're wearing yours for me. If all the men are wearing them, I can see them everywhere I turn. There's a reminder about commandments. So we wear them for others more than we wear them for ourselves. I know the verse doesn't say that, but remember, the verse was given to them in a community context. So when it says for you to remember, okay, yeah, you're supposed to remember, but also I get to see yours easier than mine, so it reminds me too.